The night was calm, and the small town streets were almost empty. Ethan walked home slowly, his hands deep in his pockets. He had stayed too long at the library reading old books about the stars. It was something he loved to do, even if others called it boring. The cool air brushed against his face, and the lamps along the road flickered weakly. Everything felt normal, yet his heart carried a strange weight. As if something was watching him, the sound of his own footsteps echoed in the silence. He stopped, turning his head quickly, but saw nothing. The houses were quiet, the windows dark, the streets lifeless. He laughed nervously at himself, telling his mind not to imagine things. Still, the feeling did not go away. It clung to him, heavy and sharp, like unseen eyes pressing into his back. He tried to walk faster, but the night seemed to slow around him. The shadows of trees stretched long across the road, their branches moving though the air was still. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Suddenly, the streetlight above him buzzed loudly, then went dark. Ethan froze in the middle of the road. The silence became thicker, as if the whole world was holding its breath. A faint glow appeared in the sky. At first he thought it was the moon behind a cloud, but the light grew brighter, sharper, and it was not the color of the moon. It was blue, soft yet powerful. Like the sea boiling in the heavens, Ethan's eyes widened as the light began to move, circling above him. His body screamed to run, but his legs refused to obey. He felt locked in place, trapped by a force he could not understand. The glow descended, slowly surrounding him like a curtain of mist. The air grew warmer, buzzing with strange energy. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest, and sweat trickled down his face. The light wrapped tighter, forming a cage that seemed alive. He tried to scream for help, but his voice came out as a whisper swallowed by the silence. Then he heard it, clear and soft, yet impossible to ignore. A voice not from the street, not from the sky, but from inside his mind. The voice of a girl, quiet but filled with urgency. She said, "I need you." Ethan gasped, his knees trembling. He spun around, searching for someone, anyone. And then he saw her. At the edge of the light stood a figure, a girl, but not like any he had ever seen. Her eyes glowed with silver fire, her hair floated as if moved by invisible water, her skin shimmered faintly as if woven from starlight. She stepped closer, and the air bent around her like waves in a pond. Every instinct told Ethan this was wrong, this was dangerous, yet he could not look away. The girl lifted her hand, her fingers long and delicate. She reached out, her expression not cruel but desperate. Her lips moved, though the words struck directly into his mind. "You are the one. I need you." The sound of her voice made the light around him tremble. His chest tightened, his lungs fighting for air. He tried to back away, but the ground beneath him glowed with symbols that pulsed like veins. His body rose from the street, lifted as if gravity had abandoned him. The world spun, the stars above seemed to stretch and twist. Ethan's eyes locked on hers, and he saw something terrifying yet human. Fear, loneliness, a silent cry for help. The town below grew smaller and smaller. The rooftops faded, the lamps vanished, and only the night sky remained. The girl's hand touched his wrist, cold and warm at the same time. The light swallowed them both in a flash that cut the darkness. The last sound Ethan heard was her whisper, sharp and fragile. "Don't fight me, please." And then silence. The street, the town, the earth, all gone. Ethan's body floated weightless in a sea of glowing blue. He tried to scream, but no sound came. He reached out blindly, searching for something solid. But there was nothing except the girl, her shining eyes locked on him. The cage of light became a tunnel, pulling them upward faster and faster. His stomach twisted, his chest burned, his vision blurred. He wanted to believe this was a dream, a nightmare from which he would wake. But the pain in his chest told him this was real in that endless tunnel of light. Ethan realized something that froze his blood. The girl was not rescuing him, she was taking him. Her words had not been a request, they were a command. She needed him, but not in a way he could understand. The stars tore open above, revealing shapes too massive, too strange to belong to human eyes. A vast shadow moved across the light, and Ethan felt smaller than a grain of sand. The girl pressed closer, her eyes fierce, her grip unbreakable, and in the chaos of fear, wonder, and confusion, one truth became clear. Ethan was no longer on Earth. He had been chosen, or stolen, by something far greater than himself. Ethan opened his eyes slowly. The world around him was not the world he had known. He was lying on a smooth surface that glowed faintly, as if the floor itself was alive. Strange symbols moved across it, like water, forming patterns he could not read. The air was thick and humming, every breath carrying the taste of metal and lightning. He sat up quickly, his heart racing, his hands shaking. This was no dream, no trick of his mind. It was real. The chamber around him was vast and curved, its walls breathing with pale light. The colors shifted between silver and blue, as though the room itself had emotions. He touched the floor, expecting it to feel cold. But it was warm, like skin. His reflection appeared in the glowing wall beside him, but it was strange, distorted. His face looked pale, stretched, as if the place itself was bending him. Panic rose in his chest. He wanted to scream, to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then he saw her. The alien girl stood only a few steps away, silent and still. Her silver eyes burned like stars hidden. In fog, her form was delicate, yet there was strength in the way she held herself. She wore no clothes like humans did, only a thin veil of light wrapped around her body. It shimmered with every movement, as if woven from the night sky. Ethan pushed himself backward, his voice breaking. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The words came out loud, trembling. With fear, the girl tilted her head, studying him like a rare creature. When she spoke, her lips moved, but the sound bloomed inside his mind. "Do not fear. I will not hurt you. I brought you here because I need you." Her voice was soft, but every word carried weight, pressing against his thoughts. Ethan shook his head violently. "No. No. This isn't real. I want to go home. Take me back, right now." But the girl only stepped closer. Her expression was calm, yet her eyes revealed something deeper. Desperation. She whispered again, "You cannot go back. Not yet." The room trembled suddenly. A loud pulse shook the walls, and the floor under Ethan's hands vibrated. He looked around in terror, the lights flickering like fire about to die. The girl's face changed, fear flashing across her silver eyes. Ethan saw her raise her hands, thin symbols glowing around her wrists. The chamber obeyed her, walls thickening, lights growing brighter. Outside, a deep roar echoed like thunder rolling through the void. Ethan covered his ears, but the sound crawled through his bones. It was not natural. It was alive, hunting them. "What is happening?" Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. The girl's gaze locked on him, her eyes hard as stone. "They have found us. They are coming." Her voice quivered now, the calm gone, replaced with urgency. She grabbed his arm with surprising strength, pulling him to his feet. Her skin felt both warm and cold, a strange mix that made him shiver. She dragged him across the glowing floor, the symbols lighting under their steps. Doors opened ahead of them without touch, sliding apart like waves of water. The ship was alive, and it obeyed her. They entered a long corridor, walls shining with moving streams of light. The air was thick, humming with invisible energy. Ethan stumbled, his legs weak, his mind screaming that none of this was possible. He shouted, "Why me? Why did you take me?" The girl glanced back, her expression unreadable. "Because you are human, and because only you can help me survive." The words hit him like a blade. He wanted to argue, to demand answers, but the ship shook again. The ceiling cracked with a deep groan, fragments of light raining down like glass. Ethan covered his head, but the girl shielded him with her body. For a moment he saw something new in her eyes, fear not for herself but for him. It confused him, twisted his panic into something else. She looked fragile in that second, almost human. Then she pulled him forward again, faster, her steps almost floating. They reached another chamber larger than the first, filled with tall pillars of glowing crystal. The crystals pulsed like hearts, each one beating with strange rhythm. In the center stood a seat, shaped not for a human, not for an alien, but for something between. The girl pushed him toward it, her voice sharp. "Sit." Now. Ethan resisted, backing away, his fear boiling into anger. "I don't understand any of this. I won't do what you say." The girl's eyes flashed, not with cruelty, but with desperate fire. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "If you do not sit, we will both die, or... Please, trust me." Her hand shook as she reached for him, her glowing fingers brushing his arm. For the first time, Ethan realized she was not all-powerful. She was afraid, vulnerable, and clinging to him like he was her only hope. The ship roared again, louder, closer. A shadow moved across the crystal walls, dark and monstrous. Ethan's body shook with fear. His mind screamed to escape. But there was nowhere to run. He looked at the alien girl, her silver eyes begging, her hand trembling. And though he did not understand, though he hated the fear she had thrown him into, something inside him whispered to sit. Slowly, painfully, he lowered himself onto the strange seat. The crystals flared to life, light rushing through the walls like blood in veins. The chamber shook, but now it was not with weakness, it was with power. The ship came alive, roaring with energy that pushed back the shadows outside. The girl exhaled in relief, her shoulders trembling, her silver eyes softened, and she whispered again, almost gently, "Now you see. Without you I cannot survive." Ethan stared at her, his fear still strong but his curiosity stronger. He wanted answers. He needed to know what she meant. But before he could speak, the ship lurched forward, racing into the unknown. And Ethan realized his abduction was only the beginning. The ship steadied after the violent chase. The shaking slowed, the roar faded, and the corridors returned to their soft, glowing calm. Ethan sat frozen in the strange seat, his chest rising and falling like he had run a marathon. His hands gripped the edges, knuckles white, his breath sharp and shallow. He looked around, waiting for the next explosion, the next monster to tear through the walls. But for the first time since he was taken, there was silence. The alien girl stood near the crystals, her face pale under the silver glow, her silver eyes dimmed, not weak but heavy, as though she carried centuries of sorrow. She whispered something, in her own language, soft sounds that hummed like music and thunder. Ethan stared, confused, angry, and afraid. Finally, he broke the silence, his voice rough. "Tell me what's happening. Why am I here? Why me?" The girl turned slowly, her glowing hair drifting as if underwater. Her lips parted and her voice entered his mind. "Because you are human. And humans are not like us. You carry something we cannot." Ethan frowned, shaking his head. "That doesn't mean anything. I'm just an ordinary man." The girl stepped closer, her face tense. "No, you are not ordinary. None of your kind are ordinary. You do not understand what you are." Ethan rose from the seat, pushing her hand away. His voice cracked with anger. "You took me from my home, from my life. And you keep talking in riddles. I deserve the truth." The girl lowered her eyes, her voice softer now. "The truth will hurt, but it cannot be hidden." She waved her hand, and the crystals around them shifted. The walls melted into a vision. Stars stretched across the chamber, and shapes of dark ships moved like predators. "Through the galaxy," Ethan gasped, stepping back as the images surrounded him. The girl pointed to the shadows, her eyes sharp. "They are hunters, the destroyers. They kill all they find, and my people are dying." The shadows swallowed planets, entire worlds cracking like eggs. Ethan felt his stomach twist as screams echoed faintly through the vision. He wanted to look away, but he could not. Her voice filled his mind again. "We ran. We hid. But we cannot fight them alone. Their power is endless. Our light is fading." But then, we discovered something. The vision shifted, showing Earth, blue and alive against the dark. Ethan's breath caught, his throat dry. The girl's silver eyes locked on him. Your world, your people. You are different from all others. You hold something we do not have, something they fear, and that is why I came for you. Ethan's legs weakened and he sat back down slowly. What are you saying? That I'm some kind of weapon? The girl shook her head, her voice calm but firm. Not a weapon, a key. Humans are keys. You can unlock power that my kind cannot touch, and with it, we may survive. He laughed bitterly, though fear cracked his voice. I don't even know how to pay my rent, and you're telling me I can save your people? The girl's lips curved, not in humor but in sadness. You do not see yourself, but I see you, and I know your kind carries courage, fire, and something greater. We call it the spark. She reached out, touching his chest lightly. It is inside you. It has always been inside you. Ethan shivered under her touch. He wanted to argue, to call her a liar, but deep inside he remembered moments when humans had surprised the universe, men walking on the moon, explorers sailing into endless seas, people standing against impossible odds. Was this what she meant? His mind spun with the weight of her words. The ship suddenly groaned, a low warning sound. The girl looked up sharply, her calm breaking. They are close again, the hunters. They will not stop. Not until I give them what they want. Ethan stared, his voice unsteady. What do they want? The girl's silver eyes burned. You. His blood ran cold, his skin crawling. Me? Why me? She nodded slowly, sorrow in her gaze. Because they know what you are. They fear you. They fear all humans. If they take you, they will learn to kill your kind before you even rise. I could not let that happen. So I stole you first. Ethan's heart pounded like thunder in his chest. The words cut deep, terrifying and strange. He tried to speak, but his throat closed. Finally, he whispered, You ruined my life, and now you're telling me I'm supposed to save yours? The girl stepped closer, her eyes shimmering with unspoken pain. Yes. But you have not lost your life, Ethan. You have stepped into what it was always meant to be. The chamber darkened, the vision fading back into glowing walls. Ethan sat in silence, his mind a storm of questions, fears and doubts. He did not trust her, yet something in her words burned with truth. The spark, the hunters, the danger. All of it pressed on him. He wanted to deny it, to run, to wake up back in his bed. But the silver-eyed girl stood before him, unshaken, her voice soft but sharp. You will understand soon the spark is real, and when it awakens, nothing will be the same. The silence did not last. The ship began to tremble again, soft at first, then harder, like the beating of a giant drum. Ethan grabbed the edge of the strange seat, his knuckles tight. His eyes darted around the chamber, searching for answers, for safety, for anything human. But there was only the alien girl and the walls that seemed to breathe with light. She looked up, her silver eyes narrowing. The air grew heavier, thicker, humming with a deep sound that pressed. Against his ears, Ethan winced, covering his head. What is it? He shouted, his voice cracking. The girl did not look at him, her voice sharp inside his mind. The hunters. They have found us again. The lights inside the ship dimmed, replaced by a dull red glow. Symbols flashed along the walls, rushing, in waves like veins filled with blood. The girl moved quickly, her fingers tracing the air, summoning strange signs that glowed and vanished. The ship responded, shifting, changing shape, as though it were alive and afraid. Ethan's chest tightened, sweat dripping down his temple. He could feel the danger, real and close, pressing in like a storm. Then it came, a crash so violent it shook the chamber. The walls rippled as though struck by a hammer. Ethan was thrown from the seat, rolling across the glowing floor. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he forced himself up. Are we crashing? He yelled, panic breaking his words. The girl grabbed a crystal column, her eyes burning with light. No, they are boarding. Ethan's blood turned cold. Boarding. You mean? But the answer came before he finished. A sharp screech split the air, metal against metal. The walls tore open, not from weakness but from claws. Dark shapes crawled through the rift, their bodies long and twisted, eyes burning, with red fire, skin like black steel that rippled with shadows. Their movements were fast, too fast, like predators leaping from the dark. Ethan stumbled backward, his heart slamming in his chest. The hunters were taller than men, their limbs, long and sharp, their mouths filled with rows of jagged teeth. They hissed in unison, the sound piercing like broken glass. The girl stepped forward, her body glowing brighter. Light spilled from her hands, forming a barrier that pulsed between them and the monsters. The hunters slammed against it, claws sparking, teeth snapping. The ship screamed with the force, but the barrier held. For now, Ethan's voice shook. "What are those things?" The girl's reply was steady but grim. "Death. They are death-made flesh." Her silver eyes glanced at him, urgent. "Stay behind me. Do not move." The hunters roared, and one pushed its claw through the barrier, cracks of light splintering across it. The girl gritted her teeth, her voice sharp. "I cannot hold them for long." Ethan looked around wildly, searching for anything, something he could use, some kind of weapon. But all he saw were glowing crystals, smooth walls, and the monsters tearing closer. The barrier shattered. The sound exploded like breaking glass, the light falling away in shards. The hunters leapt forward, claws stretched, jaws wide. Ethan fell back, terror exploding in his chest. The girl moved with sudden speed, her hands cutting the air, light slicing outward like blades. She struck one of the hunters, the beam tearing across its chest. It screamed, a sound that rattled the chamber and collapsed into black smoke. But two more rushed in, faster, hungrier. Ethan scrambled across the floor, panic blinding him. One of the creatures turned toward him, its burning eyes fixed. He froze, his body refusing to move. The beast lunged, claws stretching to tear him apart. At the last moment, the girl hurled herself between them. Her body glowed like a star. Light blasting the creature backward, she fell to her knees, trembling, her energy fading. Ethan's heart hammered. She had saved him again, risking herself. He crawled to her side, shouting, "What do I do? Tell me what to do." Her eyes met his, weak but sharp. "The crystals. They answer to you. Use them." Her hand pointed toward the pillars around them, glowing faintly. Ethan looked, confusion clouding his face. "I don't know how." Her voice struck his mind like thunder. "You do. You are human. You are the spark." The hunters hissed, circling closer, their shadows spreading across the floor. Ethan's legs shook, his body frozen between fear and disbelief. But he forced himself up, stumbling toward the crystals. He placed his hand on the nearest one. It was warm, beating like a heart beneath his palm. Suddenly light rushed through his arm, flooding his chest. He gasped, fire and lightning exploding inside him. The crystal glowed brighter, the others answering, the chamber filling with power. The hunters shrieked, stepping back as the light grew. Ethan's body trembled, but he did not let go. The ship roared, alive again. The girl lifted her head, her silver eyes wide with awe. Ethan turned toward the monsters, the light burning in his hands now. The creatures lunged, but this time he did not fall. A burst of energy exploded from him, slamming into the hunters. They were hurled back, their bodies dissolving into ash and smoke. The chamber shook with silence again. Ethan dropped to his knees, his chest heaving. His hands glowed faintly, the fire inside him dimming but still alive. He looked at the girl, his voice broken. What did I just do?" She crawled closer, her silver eyes shining with relief. "You awakened it. The spark. You are more than they fear." Her hand touched his shoulder, gentle yet firm. "This is why I need you. This is why they want you dead." Ethan's breath slowed, his body trembling. He stared at the fading ash of the hunters. For the first time since his abduction, his fear shifted. It was no longer the fear of being powerless. It was the fear of knowing he might be something greater than he ever imagined. The chamber was quiet again. Only the faint hum of the crystals remained, soft and steady, like the heartbeat of the ship. Ash from the destroyed hunters drifted on the glowing floor, fading into nothing. Ethan sat on his knees, his body weak, his chest heavy, his hands still tingling with light. He felt like his entire body had been drained and yet filled at the same time. His heart pounded not only with fear, but with something else, something strange, something powerful. The alien. Girl crawled closer, her silver eyes soft. Her body trembled, the light around her dimming, yet her expression was calm, almost gentle. She placed her hand on his arm, her touch cool. "You did it. You awakened the spark," she whispered into his mind. Ethan looked at her, his voice shaky. "I don't understand. I didn't even know what I was doing." The girl tilted her head, her shimmering hair falling across her face. "That is why you are human. You do not need to understand to fight. You act when it matters." Ethan frowned, pulling his arm away. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong. He had not been brave. He had only been terrified, desperate. But a memory burned in his mind, how the light had flowed through him, how the hunters had fallen back in fear. It had felt real, undeniable, like something hidden deep inside him had been unlocked. He rubbed his chest where the warmth still lingered. Why me, though? Why not someone stronger, smarter? Someone ready for this? The girl's lips curved faintly, almost a smile. "Because no one is ever ready. Not even me." Her words surprised him. She looked so strange, so powerful, yet there was sadness in her face. For the first time, she did not seem like a captor, but like someone carrying a burden too heavy to hold. Ethan studied her quietly. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice calmer now. She blinked as if the question itself was unexpected. "Lyra," she whispered, her silver eyes softening. Ethan repeated it slowly. "Lyra," letting the sound rest on his tongue. It felt both alien and familiar, like a word that belonged to the stars. The ship shifted beneath them, steadying itself. The crystals dimmed to a softer glow, as if resting after the battle. Ethan leaned back against one of the pillars, his breath slowing. Lyra sat beside him, her form glowing faintly in the dark. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the fight still heavy between them. Finally, Ethan spoke. "You saved me twice now. Why risk yourself for me if I'm just a key?" Lyra's silver gaze turned to him, and for the first time her voice carried a fragile tone. "Because you are not only a key, you are alive. And I have lost too many lives already." Her words struck him, heavy and real. He looked into her eyes and saw it. Pain, grief, loneliness. Behind her beauty and power was someone scarred by loss. Ethan swallowed hard, his anger softening. "I'm sorry for whatever you've lost." Lyra lowered her eyes, her voice trembling. "My people, my family, all gone. The hunters take everything, and now I am alone." Ethan felt his chest tighten. He thought of his own small life back on Earth, his friends, his family, his quiet nights. He had never felt truly alone, but now he saw what it looked like. The silence stretched, but it was not heavy. It was quiet, almost peaceful, a fragile thread forming between them. Lyra lifted her hand, slowly, revealing a small crystal in her palm. It pulsed faintly like a weak heartbeat. She held it out to him, her eyes searching his. "This is our core crystal. It is dying. It needs you." Ethan hesitated, staring at it. The thought of touching it again made his skin crawl. The last time he had touched a crystal, it had filled him with fire and lightning. "What will happen if I touch it?" he asked, his voice low. Lyra leaned closer, whispering into his mind. "It will bond with you. It will know you, and I will know you too." Her words sent a shiver through him. He did not fully understand, but he could feel the weight of it. This was not just about power, it was about trust, about connection. Ethan looked at her carefully, her silver eyes waiting, her hands trembling slightly. He realized she was not forcing him this time, she was asking. Slowly, carefully, He reached out and placed his hand on the crystal. Light spread instantly, soft but deep. It flowed up his arm, into his chest, into his mind. He gasped, his eyes wide. The bond was not fire this time. It was warmth, memory, feeling. He saw flashes of her life. Lyra as a child, laughing under twin suns, her people shining with light, their voices like music. Then the hunters came. The fire, the screams, the endless night. He felt her pain, her loneliness, her desperate hope, and she felt him too. His small earthly joys, his books, his laughter, his fear, his longing for something greater. When the light faded, they sat together, breathless. Their eyes met, and no words were needed. The bond was real, a thread now tied between them. Ethan's chest ached, but not from fear this time. It was something else, something deeper. Lyra's lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. Now you understand. We are not alone anymore. Ethan nodded slowly. For the first time since the night began, he believed her. He was still afraid, still lost. But he was no longer just a prisoner. He was part of something larger, something shared. The hunters would come again, he knew that. But for now, in this quiet bond, he was not alone. The bond lingered between them, warm and alive. Ethan sat with his back against the glowing pillar, his chest rising slowly, his mind still reeling from the visions. Lyra sat across from him, her silver eyes softer than before, watching him not as a prisoner but as something far more. For a long moment neither spoke, the silence filled only by the gentle hum of the ship. Ethan pressed his palm against the floor, feeling its pulse answer to him now, faint but real. The connection was still there, the spark flickering quietly under his skin. He lifted his hand, staring at it. The glow was faint now, only a soft shimmer across his fingertips. But he remembered the moment when the light had burst from him, when the hunters had been hurled back. It had not felt like strength. It had felt like survival. Still, it was his. And it was terrifying. He muttered under his breath, half to himself, "I don't even know how I did it." Lyra leaned forward, her voice brushing softly through his thoughts. "You acted, not with thought, but with instinct. That is human power. The spark is not something to study. It is something to trust." Ethan gave a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Trust? I nearly burned myself alive." Lyra tilted her head, her shimmering hair catching the light. "And yet you live. And more than live. You change the course of battle." There was no mockery in her words, only quiet wonder. The chamber trembled, faintly, not from attack but from movement. The ship was gliding through space again, carrying them further from Earth. Ethan looked at the stars beyond the walls, endless and cold. He whispered almost to himself, "I was supposed to go home, eat leftovers, sleep in my bed. Now I'm here." Lyra's silver eyes followed his gaze. "Home is not lost to you, but you cannot return yet, not while the hunters are close." Her words brought no comfort, but he did not argue. Instead, his eyes drifted back to the crystals, their steady glow inviting yet dangerous. A thought struck him. If they answered to him, could he control them? Could he shape the power instead of being consumed by it? The idea was both terrifying and irresistible. He stood slowly, his legs unsteady. Lyra rose with him, curiosity flickering in her eyes. Ethan stepped toward one of the taller crystals. He hesitated, his hand hovering. The last time he had touched it, the light had exploded without warning, but this time he wanted control, not chaos. He closed his eyes, breathing slowly. "Come on," he whispered to himself. "Don't just burn me out." His palm touched the surface, and the crystal shivered like living skin. A warmth spread through him, not wild this time, but steady. It filled his chest, his arms, his mind. He saw flashes, stars, fire, storms, and yet they did not drown him. He guided the warmth, focusing on the image of light forming in his hand. Slowly, carefully, a small orb of blue fire appeared. Glowing softly in his palm, his eyes snapped open, shock flooding his face. He had done it not by accident but by will. The light flickered gently, floating like a living flame. Lyra gasped softly, her silver eyes wide. "You control it." "Already. I did not think it possible so soon." Ethan stared at the flame, awe mixing with fear. "It feels alive," he said, his voice low. Lyra stepped closer, studying it. "It is alive. The spark is not only energy, it is spirit. When you call it, you call the strength of every human who has ever lived. You carry all of them." Ethan's throat tightened, the weight of her words pressing into him. He clenched his fist slowly, and the flame dissolved into sparks that melted into the air. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the ship. Ethan turned toward her, his voice uneasy. "If this spark is so powerful, why hasn't anyone on Earth noticed? Why didn't I notice?" Lyra lowered her gaze, her voice softer. "Because power sleeps until it is called. Your world has lived in peace compared to the wars of the stars. Your people never needed to awaken it fully, but the hunters know. They fear you because when humanity rises, nothing can stop it." Ethan swallowed hard, his mind spinning. He wanted to deny it, but he could not ignore what he had just done. The light had obeyed him, not by accident, but by choice. He rubbed his hands together, still warm from the glow. A small part of him whispered that maybe, just maybe, he could do this. Lyra watched him quietly, her expression unreadable, but inside her chest hope was rising. She had been alone, her people destroyed, her world gone. Yet here was a single human who had already done more than she had dreamed possible. She stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm lightly. "You are stronger than you believe, Ethan. Stronger than I believed. And I believe more strength will come." He looked at her, uncertain. "I'm not a soldier. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who likes books and quiet nights." Lyra's lips curved faintly, almost a smile. "And that is why you are perfect. The spark does not belong to warriors, it belongs to humans, and you are human." The moment hung between them, fragile and real. Ethan turned back toward the stars, his chest heavy. He knew the hunters would return, stronger, hungrier, and he knew he was far from ready. But the spark inside him was no longer silent, it was awake, alive, waiting. And for the first time, Ethan wondered not if he could survive, but how far his power could go. The stars outside burned brighter as the ship pushed deeper into space. Ethan stood by the crystal pillars, his chest still buzzing faintly with the spark. Lyra watched him in silence, her silver eyes reflecting both pride and worry. The bond between them had grown, but the weight of it pressed heavier with every breath. He was no longer just a human taken by force, he was something more, and that truth terrified him. For a while neither spoke. The ship drifted in the quiet void, the hunters nowhere in sight. Ethan pressed his hand to the glowing wall. Staring at the endless darkness, he whispered to himself, "I just wanted my life back. I never asked for this." Lyra stepped closer, her voice gentle in his mind. "Greatness is never asked for. It is given and then it tests you." Her words only deepened the storm in him. Ethan turned sharply, his voice rough. "You keep saying I'm important, that humans are special, but all I've done is panic and almost die." Lyra shook her head, her hair shimmering faintly. "You survived, and you fought, you carry the spark, and that means you carry all of humanity's fire." Ethan clenched his fists, anger and fear boiling together. "I don't want to be your weapon." Lyra's gaze softened. "You are not a weapon. You are hope." Before he could answer, the ship groaned loudly. The lights along the walls pulsed red again. Ethan froze, panic clawing at his chest. Lyra's face hardened, her voice sharp. "The hunters, they followed. They will not stop." Ethan's stomach dropped. "How many?" Lyra closed her eyes briefly, sensing the vibrations of the ship. "Too many. More than we can fight alone." The walls shifted, revealing a view outside. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Dozens of dark ships swarmed around them, their sharp bodies slicing through the void like predators circling prey. Their red eyes glowed, hundreds of them unblinking, waiting. Ethan's knees weakened. This is impossible. We'll never make it. Lyra's silver gaze turned toward him, fierce and unyielding. We will, because you are here. She placed the dying core crystal in his hands, her voice steady though her hands trembled. The spark must flow through. This only you can feed it. Only you can turn this ship into what it was meant to be. Ethan stared at the crystal, its faint pulse weaker than before. What happens if I can't? Lyra's eyes softened. Then we both die and the hunters will come for Earth. The words cut deeper than any blade. Ethan's heart pounded, his breath ragged. Earth, his home, his family, his entire world. If he failed, it would all be lost before it even knew the danger. He closed his eyes, clutching the crystal tightly. Fear burned in his chest, but under it, something else stirred. The same instinct that had made him act before. The same fire that had pushed him to stand when he wanted to run. The hunters' ships moved closer, shadows blotting out the stars. Lyra's voice rang in his mind, urgent, desperate. Now, Ethan. Call the spark. Trust it. He lifted the crystal, holding it to his chest. Light surged through him, wild and heavy. He gasped, his body trembling, but he did not let go. He focused, picturing Earth, picturing home, picturing the people he refused to let vanish. The crystal blazed, flooding the ship with waves of blue fire. The walls lit like suns. The floor glowed like a sea of stars. The hunters shrieked, their ships shuddering as the light struck them. Ethan roared, the power pouring through him. Unstoppable, the ship itself transformed, its skin reshaping, its weapons unfolding like wings of light. Lyra fell to her knees, staring in awe, her silver eyes wide. You are doing it. You are becoming the spark. Outside, the swarm of hunters fired, red beams lashing through the void. But the light from Ethan's bond with the crystal shielded the ship. Their attacks dissolved against it like waves breaking on stone. Ethan pushed harder, the spark burning in his veins. Bolts of blue fire shot from the ship, tearing through the dark vessels. One after another, the hunters fell, their ships exploding into nothing. The rest pulled back, hissing, retreating into the shadows of space. Silence returned, broken only. By Ethan's heavy breathing, he dropped to the floor, the crystal dimming in his hands. The glow in his chest faded, leaving only exhaustion. But they were alive. Lyra crawled to him, her hand on his shoulder. You saved us. You saved more than us. Her voice shook, a mixture of relief and something else. Respect, awe, hope. Ethan stared at the crystal, its faint glow like a dying ember. I don't know how long I can keep this up, he whispered. Lyra's gaze locked on him, steady and sharp. You will not be alone, I am with you, and soon your people will know, they will awaken too. Ethan's blood ran cold, his eyes snapping to hers. What do you mean? My people. Her voice was quiet, but unshaken. I did not take you only for me, Ethan. I took you because all of humanity must rise. They are the only force the hunters fear, and now, they know you exist. Ethan's chest tightened, the weight of her words slamming into him. This was bigger than him, bigger than Lyra, bigger than the bond. The hunters would not stop. Earth was already in their sights. He looked out at the stars, Earth a faint glow behind them. His voice was hoarse but firm. This is only the beginning. The ship turned, its course set deeper into the galaxy. The hunters retreated, but their shadows lingered. Lyra's hand stayed on his shoulder, her silver eyes locked on him, and Ethan, though afraid, though broken, felt the spark burn quietly within him. He was no longer a victim, no longer only human. He was the start of something greater. The hunters had wanted to end him, but instead he had chosen. He would fight not only for Lyra, not only for himself, but for all of Earth. And somewhere in the endless dark, the hunters screamed in rage, knowing their war had only just begun.